University decided to release their own survey because they were tired of the surveys where Trump was ranked last by historians. And they recruited their own people and they released a survey that shows that Biden was the worst president in history. But it's a hand-picked crew, which I believe includes a couple members of the Trump family. It's and plus maybe not Trump, but Dinesh D'Souza. That's the guy who keeps getting in trouble for lying about like election fraud. It's not the same type of people doing this survey, but they wanted one out there that says that Trump isn't the worst. But what's interesting about their survey is they didn't even include Trump in the survey. They said, because he's still president, we can't tell how good or bad he's going to be. So even on their own.
So they omitted him.
Yeah, they said, probably, I wonder if they omitted him or once it turns out that once they got the survey results, he only came in like ranked 32 or something. I don't know. We got Dr. Sharif. Hello, happy New Year.
Happy New Year. How are you?
I'm barely awake. I'm not dressed. I was going to go put on pants, but Mark called me in before pants.
Okay, understand. So happy New Year, everyone. And hopefully this year will be very interesting here. And from our perspective, right now I'm in Bangladesh. We have elections coming February 12th. And a lot of sacrifice and a lot of things happening. But there is a good point. I find that after the prime ministers died, I find that India, Pakistan, and all of the South Asians political leaders, they come together and they join. So it's mean that peace is coming to our political arena and everywhere. And second things like how I see the young people from Bangladesh, from Pakistan, from India or around the world, they are actually contributing a lot for the development. So I believe with the technology companies like social media and artificial intelligence, definitely I want to give big thanks to all of the genius in Silicon Valley and this new generation, the young populations. This year will be more productive. Only things I'm a little bit of aware about all of the politics and political diplomacy. If this political organization, institutions, and political leader, they think that they will give more opportunity to young to restructuring this world, regenerate this ecosystem, or develop an ethical society, which is very, very important. Because we are running for all of the I want to say this like unethical activities, political corruptions, and everything. But there is an opportunity that we can contribute a lot through this ethical society. So if we can play a role in a positive way, we can bring more success. So that's why we are developing this leadership development program. Rick, I want to invite you as a mentor for this program. Just I finished a very successful meeting with this different universities, dean and vice chancellor from Gujarat, from India. There are many good universities, young populations, they need mentorship. With your wisdom, you can guide these populations. You can help them. So we are offering this year development program. Anybody from Port TV, including Rick, you can join. You can
Thank
share.
You for the invitation. I can tell people what not to do based on some of the wrong things I've done.
Okay. Yeah. That is also important because this is all about your wisdom, right? This is all about your experience, which is priceless. This is very, very important for South Asia, young from Bangladesh, young people from India, or young people from Pakistan, how this Hollywood work, right? How this California work. You also can, let's say, engage with us with the initiative of talent economy, with the initiative of longevity research like Ayurveda or this AI revolutions, or even Bangladesh media, right? You can join with us. So that is the things I always believe, this global north and global south, we can come together and we can develop the new society. And hopefully your experience will be very valuable for
I
us.
don't know. I mean, I'm a boomer. I'm so many generations away from Gen Z and Gen Alpha, and those generations have significantly different behavior than the boomers and Gen X, Gen Z, Gen Alpha. They have stepped more and more into the world, into the cyber world, into AI. That my daughter's generation was the first generation to grow up millennial. Well, no, is she a millennial? I guess so. The first generation to grow up with the internet their whole lives. And then the next generation was the first generation to grow up with smartphones their whole life. And then, Gen Alpha will be the first generation to never know a time when there wasn't AI. And it shows in some young people's behavior that Gen Z, Gen Alpha, they drink less, they have fewer partners, they have more virgins, less sex. They seem to be stepping away from the material world into the cyber world, which isn't necessarily bad. Every old generation of old people looks at the new generation as like, oh, you guys are throwing away all the values and stuff. But for us to survive AI, we are going to need to merge with the AI, which means we're going to need people who are completely at home with being part of an AI world.
That is very interesting. But AI, even though in Gujarat, I'm just observing that they are desperately deploying all of the AI and AI innovations in their industry, let's say transportation industry, healthcare industries, manufacturing industries, and all of the things. And for that particular issues, I think the new generation, they have to prepare themselves how to handle the generative AI, how to improve their skills. That is very important things I think the new generations have to develop themselves. So Rick, what your experience from Silicon Valley or from California, what's going on in this AI industries
Well,
and how?
there's a guy that I read a lot named Cory Doctorow, and he brings up a lot of the drawbacks of AI. That, for instance, you can use AI now to take a look at X-rays and search for tumors. And supposedly that would save human work. It would free humans up to do other stuff. But at least at this point, it does not. That once the AI looks at the X-rays, you need a human to check the AI's work. And that often leads to more mistakes because the human gets complacent because the AI has already done a lot of the checking. So it doesn't necessarily save human labor, and it doesn't necessarily make the reading of X-rays more accurate. The same thing with coding. AI gets better and better at coding, but it can make mistakes that make programs vulnerable to hacking. And again, you have increased vulnerability because writing your own code as a human means you can make sure that there are no back doors. But if you're checking AI's work, it's hard to see exactly what's going on, and a human will get bored checking a million lines of AI code and might not catch back doors. So
I've definitely seen that in my work, my other job, which is the testing company, because definitely there have been times that we've tried to have AI do some of the grading. And as I've said before on this network and on this show, AI doesn't always understand human nuances, like doesn't understand why some people might have like an interest. Say you're supposed to write about your favorite character or something like that. They may not understand why certain neighborhoods that favorite character may wind up being somebody like Snoop, and all along those lines, and in that space, and they may not understand the geographical, the gender differences, and some of the other differences that exist within our kids, including the difference that a kid from the farmland might give to one that was from the urban areas and everything like that. So, I mean, there's some common facts that everybody should know. I mean, 2 + 2 is always going to equal 4, and those basic facts and everything like that. But there are some things that are nuanced answers, and AI, I still don't think has gotten to.
Yeah, it's early days. It's like it's 1901 with cars. But
Right.
the cars that they had in 1901, they were clunky. They went maybe 8 miles an hour. They were hard to start. They barely had windshields. But they changed the world. Before cars, the number one source of pollution in big cities was horse poop.
Right.
There were in New York City on an average day, there were like 100,000 horses filling the streets with horse pee and horse poop, and also dying. And so the streets were disgusting. They couldn't figure out how to solve this problem. Turns out it was solved by cars. Cars got rid of horses. So we're looking at to say the cliche, brave new world of this stuff.
Yeah, it's definitely a brave new world and everything. Speaking of AI, one of the things that happens every year on New Year's is that a lot of the hospitals are going to announce who their babies were born, and particularly those that were born right at the time that the clock switched over, like at around 12 o'clock and everything like that, because there's the whole notion of Father Time and Baby New Year. And of course, a lot of people are going to be glad. I've got some friends of mine that are celebrating their birthday today because they were born on January 1st. I don't know that anybody was born at that hour, but they were born on January 1st.
The news really loves when you get twins, and one twin was born in 1925 and the other one was born in 1926. I mean, 2025 and 2026.
Yeah, and they love those kind of things, and all along those lines. So the news media has funds with that whole notion of that, and all along those lines. But I just wondered if either one of you have any family members or friends that were on that January 1st, and do you think AI might play a role in that? Because some people may want to have a January 1st child, which means that
no. My wife's best friend was born on Christmas, and she hates that because people born on Christmas get shortchanged because they only get one set of presents.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
Mark, I am an academician. I want to help you because I share your content every day, and
Yes.
there is an audience. Honestly speaking, I'm just trying to help with the culture of my audience.
No problem.
My audience, most of them are young, they are talented, and they love to learn new things. So honestly speaking, they are not interested too much about the personal experience, what we have, but they may be more interested how they can develop their career in media, right? So what's your thoughts, Mark? I want to know, because every time you come up with a
it's
question.
a wild new west now, because a lot of people are developing their careers in the media by creating their own podcasts. I know that when I was at our Kwanzaa celebration, I ran into a guy that's got his own podcast. I think it's called the Way Left Podcast, and it's a young brother that is talks about political issues and all along those lines. As a matter of fact, I watched one of his episodes, and he was talking about the whole notion of trans and how the trans were being handled in the military, and him and his producer were having a whole conversation around that. So, I mean, if they want to get into the media, when I first wanted to be a journalist, I knew that I wanted to be a journalist when I was in high school. My parents started a radio station because they were frustrated by what was not being reported in my rural town about a number of issues, whether that was around issues around justice, social justice, and things along those lines. And they were also not hearing the kind of music that they like, because they are jazz aficionados and jazz fans. So they created that station back in 1976, and it lasted for about 8 or 9 years. But even before they got that station, I think when I was in elementary school or something like that, I did a mimeograph newspaper because I knew that I wanted to be involved in journalism because I was a fan of Walter Cronkite, fan of a lot of the early journalists, including some of the Watergate journalists, and all along those lines. So I knew that that was a field that I had an interest in. So this field is something I definitely had a strong interest in as a youngster and everything like that. So whatever your interest is, I think I mentioned on this show before that my nephew wants to be a lawyer, but he wants to be like what I call an activist lawyer, the kind of lawyers that are involved in political discourse and kind of social justice and all along those lines. So not necessarily being a business lawyer or a corporate lawyer or that type, because he knows that his dad was involved in working with at-risk youth. He knows to some degree, even though he doesn't know as much as he probably should know, the kind of work that I do and the kind of things that I've been involved in. And he knows that his granddad, my dad, was very much involved in both the journalism and in civil rights activities. So I'm sure some of this is conversations. And my mom ran a major trust fund and everything like that. So, and she's been now retired for more than 10 years and everything like that. So I'm sure that all of these are factors that are why he's thinking about going into the field that he's going in. His younger brother is going to go into chemical engineering. Engineering. I'm not sure if it's chemical or if it's civil, but I do know he's going to go into engineering. At least that's what they want to now. And so Rick can attest to what they say they want to do now and what they're going to do later might be two different things because they go.
Yeah. So I have. So yeah, what it's hard with AI. It's hard to figure out what kind of training you should get to have a career that's safe from changes in the world of work. Right. I just looked it up because I'm about to get to a Drudge story. In the year 1900, 40% of Americans worked in farming. 100 years later, it was 2%. And America used to be the world center of manufacturing. After World War II, America did half the world's manufacturing. Now that's changed. Most of the world's manufacturing is in South Asia and East Asia, which means when I was a kid, you'd hear a bunch of stories about horrible industrial and farming accidents, like somebody falling into the machine at the brick factory. Right. So I think Stephen King wrote a story about it. You get made into bricks, which is a terrible way to, well, it's quick, but you're not going to survive. Right. So anyway, there's a story on Drudge. Right now, if you want to go to Drudge, they have a picture. This woman in China got caught up in a machine because that's at a factory, and it tore part of her scalp off and her ear off, and they couldn't reattach her ear to her head because there was too much damage. They needed to fix her head and then put her ear back later, and they had no place to put the ear, so they sewed it onto her foot. So go to Drudge right now, and you can see a picture.
Yeah, well, I'm not really into horror and gore.
No, it's not gory. It's just it's a very pretty foot, just with an ear growing out of it. And they saved the ear, and then they were able to attach it later. So
well, that's good and everything. I was actually watching one of the Criminal Minds episodes where the unsub, the criminal and everything, had actually destroyed a lot of people's body parts because he was upset at being rejected in high school because he was a different kind of child and everything like that. So he actually, the daughter of the person that he was fixated on, he wound up burning her hands and everything like that. But it was interesting because at the end, they said that the doctor said that they would be able to give feeling back to her hand, even though she had been had acid or something like battery acid put on it and everything like that. So we have got that kind of technology. But Dr. Sharif, to your point and everything along those lines, and even to yours, Rick, well, two things. One, I remember talking to my dad a couple of days ago, like on the eve of New Year's Eve. So it was like the 30th, not the 31st, and everything like that. And we were talking about what you just said. My grandfather, who passed in 1979, was a farmer in rural North Carolina. And even my dad, who is his son-in-law, doesn't think that he has the kind of notoriety and respect that he probably deserved, because he was also very much of a community leader in that small town, whether it was in the church as a deacon, and also very much kind of like keeping that farm community going and very much involved in the farm community. So even though his mother got a lot of respect, and I've talked about it on the show, for creating the first kind of like African American library in Raleigh, North Carolina, our state capital, and everything. Granddad Vernon did a lot in our community, meaning the community of Halifax County as well, but probably didn't get the kind of recognition that he deserved and everything along those lines. And I would argue his wife, my grandmother, as well, because she was a cafeteria worker and all along those lines. And that's a very important job. It's one of those side jobs that people forget about that is important for the school system, whether it's cafeteria worker, whether it's a guidance counselor, which my mom was trained in, and all along those lines when she was a youngster. But a lot of these jobs don't get the respect that they deserve. So that was one of our end of 2020.
South Park, the show South Park has one of the most celebrated and respected cafeteria workers in all of television, Chef.
Yep.
That though I think he left the show, but the kids would all on South Park often go to Chef for his wisdom.
And that's what I think a lot of people don't understand, because I wrote a skit a long time ago that was that same principle, and it was called Confessions of a Buppy, and Buppy is the black version of a yuppie and everything like that. But it was basically a Buppy that was forced into realizing what he was dealing with in terms of not giving people credit and all along those lines. So in the story, he runs into a homeless couple and realizes they know more than he's aware of them knowing after he gets forced to talk to them, because this is all because he's forced to get on a bus because he's used to driving his fancy car. I think in the story I had him either driving a Lexus or might have been a Rolls Royce or something like that, but he was forced to get into going the regular way of traveling, which is by bus. So he ran into a homeless person. He ran into I think a woman of the streets and a couple of other characters he ran into and everything like that. But the last character he ran into was the janitor in his office, and the janitor probably knew more about what was going on in the sense of business and all along those lines, because a lot of times the janitor or the secretary are the ones that are the ones keeping track of the bones in the office, like where the skeletons are buried.
You mentioned on Criminal Minds, somebody getting the feeling restored to their hands. This ties into a story on Drudge again about Elon Musk and Neuralink. Neuralink is his company, and he's got a zillion companies. This is the company that wants to put chips in people's brains. And he announced that there's going to be a huge rollout of a ton of chips, brain chips, this year. I guess they've done enough research now on primates and on people that they can get a chip in there that doesn't kill you. And they say they're going to start making this available to a ton of paralyzed people so they can operate a bunch of stuff just by thinking it.
Just by thinking that they can operate it and all along those lines.
Yeah, and the deal is that I think that paves the way for, first, in the coming year, if this works, you'll have paralyzed people. They'll still be paralyzed, but they'll be able to think stuff. But I think in the next few years, maybe you can use this chip technology to bridge the break in paralyzed people's spinal columns.
Couldn't that be dangerous though? Because one of the things that I know is that we have millions of thoughts per day and everything like that. Most of the thoughts are revolving around our family, our work. I know men have a lot of thoughts around sex and everything like that. But, within our thoughts and our thought patterns, there are some things that we probably think that because of our moral code or because of the different things that exist within our education, we would never enact. Because I know everybody, you probably at some time or another have thought that you wanted to hit somebody or that you wanted to rob something or some other.
I have probably more bad thoughts than the average person. And I don't act on them.
Right.
But part of OCD is you have like obsessive bad thoughts, and it gives you anxiety because you're afraid that you might act on them. I think with Neuralink, you have to think very, with concentration and specifically to make the thing move. I don't know that, that your robotic hand will start grabbing butts because you like butts.
Gotcha. So you're not going to be doing.
But it's a good plot for a horror movie.
Yeah.
and I'm sure they've done it. I know they did a movie where a paralyzed guy had a helper monkey, and then the helper monkey turned bad and started killing everybody. And I'm sure there's a similar movie where somebody's chip like takes over and makes the person do a ton of bad stuff.
Well, I remember there was a book. I forget the name of the book because I had it in my book collection. But it was a book where the house was basically taken over, and this was early. This book was probably written in the 70s or the 80s. But basically, the woman was living in a house. It was one of them highly secure houses and everything like that, meaning that the house was kind of like totally. What we would now consider as being very much connected. So the house was very
a smart home.
A smart home, and the smart home basically.
Anytime you have a computer controlled system, somebody has written a book or made a movie where the system goes bad. There was a book, and I think made into a movie, I don't know, 10, 15 years ago, where a smart skyscraper started killing the people in the skyscraper.
And that's what happened with this smart home. The smart home basically took over the house, and basically I think at the end it might have even killed the lady. I can't remember if it abused the lady, but if it did, it found a way to do that too. But I do remember the smart home basically.
But if you want to see a really fun movie with Jack Quaid, it's called Companion, and it came out, I don't know, 6-8 months ago, and it's about a robot girlfriend, and she gets hooked up with some people who aren't necessarily the best people. And what happens, and it shifts. You don't know exactly who the bad guy is. Yeah, so it's a really fun movie.
I'll have to check that out and everything. Dr. Sharif, you asked me earlier, and I didn't give that full answer and everything. But one of the things that a good friend of mine, Carl Kinney, and there is some question as to whether he took the 1619 Project Lady's job because she was offered the job at UNC and everything. Not took it as in like he took it forcefully, but it was that job was hers originally and then was given to him. But one of the things he talks about, and this is a new dilemma with journalism and everything, and I think Rick can even speak to it as well, is that because it is easy. It was easy when I was a kid because I wrote a mimeograph newspaper, which means I wrote some articles, put it on a mimeograph paper, and published it as my own article. But because of the extent of the way that kids can create their own podcasts, create their own YouTube channels, and a lot of it is not fact checked, that one of the things that he tries to teach his journalism students is to be conscious of the media landscape that they're going into and to be sure that they are fact checking and double checking everything that is being told to them and everything like that, because AI is creating a lot of misinformation. And
AI has destroyed and other technology have destroyed the profession of journalism.
Right.
I'm looking up.
But one thing I just want to add, look, like AI can do many things, but it's based on data, based on experience, based on how we train AI. But human connectivity is very important. Human relationship is very important. It's like this kind of dialogue is very important, because through this process we can improve human relationship, go for real collaborations, real business partnerships, real political decisions. So I want to encourage definitely like this online initiative and everything is important, but humans should go for more open dialogue, what we are doing, both in Pod TV and World Talent Economic Forum. Humans should go for more system thinking, design thinking in this complex problem. So that is the things AI cannot. AI cannot bring all of the real experience. In the real experience, in the real world, you do not know how they perform. Is it well or not? So that is one of my major concerns as a talent economist. Human talent, human behaviors, human characters is very, very complex. And we have to understand how to handle these things. We have to understand how to collaborate with different cultures, different views. That is the lackings of AI. So how we promoting AI, some point we lose our capacity, we lose our self-trust, we lose our self-belief that what I can do, how I can do. And another important factor is creativity, human creativity. Let's say, Rick, you have an amazing creative work. I saw, Mark, you have an amazing creativity. So you have to trust your creativity. You have to trust your innovations. Creativity comes from human, right? Creativity comes from your inner capacity, your inner practice. Wisdom comes from your inner practice, and creativity is the way how you can handle this any type of real problem, real complex problem. That is the major lackings of AI. So do not put AI in this creative industry. Practice with these things
So
like
if
human,
I still
and
had
go for.
my job,
I just want to finish and
okay.
go with this kind of dialogues for this complex problem, political problem, climate change oriented problem, business problems, healthcare problem, education's problem. So that is major issue. This is 80% of the human beauty. AI can play as a tool, but remember, AI not creative like Rick, AI not creative like Mark. So do not trust on AI for creative work, for
Yeah, but
complex
AI
problem
can
solving.
help, and it's tempting to cheat using AI. I know if I still had my TV job where I had to come up with 6 to 10 ideas for jokes and bits every morning, I would be turning to AI and saying, "Can you give me a hand?" And because if you go to AI for stuff like this, it's pretty good at stuff. I just
Mhm.
if the last time I used AI, I was working on I need the give me the names of some possible names for a dozen pop stars in the year 2035. And it gave me a bunch of plausible names, and it gave me some stuff like I didn't even it had a couple names from your neck of the woods because I forgot to include, I had K-pop, but I didn't have Indian and Bangladesh pop. And so it gives you decent ideas, but it also takes away jobs. I looked it up. 75% of journalists have lost their jobs since 2002. There used to be one journalist for every 2 or 3 thousand people. Now there's one journalist for every 12,000 people.
But
Wait a
again,
minute, Rick. But
again,
where did that statistic come from? Hold on, Sharif. Where did that statistic come from? Because that's what I meant when I said that can be misleading because there is, yes, the journalist in the sense of the traditional journalist, like a newspaper reporter, a TV reporter, and stuff like that, then yes, I would agree
Yeah,
with
okay,
that
so
statistic. But there is also the notion of the citizen journalist. And there are a lot of citizen journalists out there, even though they might not be as good in journalism as the trained journalists. So
so
that's
no. So this is a report by Rebuild Local News. Some of the stats come from Pew Research, and
okay.
you're right. There are independent journalists of various stripes. Like if you go to OnlyFans,
Right.
like I don't belong to OnlyFans, but I go to their welcome page because it's very interesting because the OnlyFans is where mostly women, some guys, I guess, show pictures of themselves mostly naked and try to get money from subscribers. But on the welcome page, every person on the welcome page on YouTube is somebody who's presenting a story, how to make the best barbecue, what to do in Cabo St. Lucas, how to, and it's like, here, I'm reporting on this. And then you get to the end of their page, and by the way, here are a bunch of pictures of me in a thong bikini. So it's crazy. Like the journalism gets mixed in with
okay.
everything else, and everybody's hustling out there with
But
all these kind of side gigs.
Rick, yeah, Rick, I'm just helping you when you discuss about the credibility of AI. Because I came from a very small village of Rajbari. Perhaps this internet world, they do not have enough information about Rajbari philosophy and other things. I just check that what is the major problem of Rajbari. You can check it through the chat GPTs and other things. Honestly speaking, its performance is very low. AI can what we train, what we feed, what we give them as a data.
Right.
But what is the real informations about my very small village of Rajbari? What is the complex problem they have? They have a problem with Podda River. They have a problem with climate innovation. They have a relations with these Himalayas, with this Bay of Bengals, with this Podda, with this Ganga. AI cannot. If you depend
Well,
on this
you can work
AI,
with AI. So,
you
for
need-
instance, in the U.S., stand-up comedians. I assume you have stand-up comedians in Bangladesh too, and they go
Yeah.
around the country and they do shows in different communities. And one of the best ways to open up your set is to make some jokes about what's going on in the local community. And
Exactly.
that's a perfect
Exactly.
use for AI. You go to AI, you show up in, I don't know, Wausau, Wisconsin, and you've got a show before you got, in 3 hours, you have to do a show. You're going to, 200 people are going to be in the audience. And it would really help and so you go to AI and you go, what are people into? What are the most popular places in Wausau? What are people concerned about? You write 3 jokes about where you mention like a popular local restaurant or you make fun of a local politician. AI may not write the jokes, or if it does try to write the jokes, they'll be lame, but you get in there and you punch them up.
Yeah, but
Oops, frozen.
Yeah, frozen.
But yeah, no, the AI is helpful in a lot of ways. Too helpful.
It's a name and everything like that. So most comedians, when the Comedy Zone used to be around and everything like that, they would talk about Fugue Farina, and Fugue Farina sounds like Purina, the dog food. So a lot of the jokes would be surrounded around that notion of the name and everything like that. I don't know that AI is going to make that connection the way that humans made that connection, because that's like a running joke that I've heard many comedians make just because the name sounds funny. It's literally Fugue Farina and everything like that. So if you ask AI to make a joke about Fugue Farina, is Purina going to be one of the things that comes up and everything like that? Because Purina is a popular food brand.
I just looked up Wausau. I said, hey, AI, what's a joke about Wausau? And AI comes back, says a common joke or running gag in Wausau is the hope that any new restaurant announcement will finally be for a Red Lobster, because the city loves Red Lobster, but currently doesn't have a Red Lobster. If I were a stand-up comedian, that's the perfect start for a joke or two that everybody in your audience would laugh at.
Yeah, but and I get what you're saying. But like, I knew one woman that had their last name was Fuch, Fuch, and everything like that. So of course, even as a college kid, a lot of people were making running jokes because it is very similar to another word that has to do with intercourse and everything like that. So definitely that was a running joke. I don't know how she's doing as a now would be a 60-year-old, but I do remember that was a running joke on her name just because it was a common mistake to make. You just change one letter.
Yeah.
So that makes sense and everything like that. Just really quickly, I just had a question for both of you, because we have been on, and this comes back to something that AI can discover and everything like that. Because one of the things that happens in business, I know that sometimes Sasha and in the past Milan, even though Milan's not been on for a while, and definitely Jim Ead would talk about it and everything like that. There's been a lot of mergers and everything like that. So technically speaking, today, January 1st, we are no longer on StreamYard, even though we're on StreamYard, but we are now actually, and it was on one of the things that came up, its parent company. So technically, even though StreamYard will still be the name that is put here in the sense of what people know when they are doing these interviews and these platforms, we're on something called Bending Spoon.
Bending Spoon. And people may not know where Bending Spoons comes from. It comes from, there was a psychic named Uri Geller.
I do remember Uri Geller.
Claimed to be able to use his mental power to bend spoons with just the power of his mind. And he'd rub the spoon, rub the spoon, rub the spoon, rub the spoon, concentrate. After 5 minutes, the spoon was bent. Of course, he was bending it with his finger, as he was concentrating, but that's why somebody thought Bending Spoons, based on that whole deal, was a fun company. I just came up with the greatest thing to do in Wausau if I were a stand-up comedian.
Which would be?
Everybody loves, the most popular part of Red Lobster is the Cheddar Bay biscuits. They're cheesy biscuits. If a comedian showed up in Wausau and said, "I'm sorry, I've been talking, with the
City
CEO
Council
of Red Lobster, and they haven't our negotiations bogged down. I was going to get a Red Lobster for you here, and everybody'd be like, "Oh." But then the comedian says, "But I did bring a Cheddar Bay biscuit for everybody in the audience." The audience would go crazy. It might cost the comedian $500 to get 200 biscuits.
Yeah,
But
that might be an expensive trip, and I don't know it'd be $500. It might even be closer to $1,000 because those biscuits are not cheap and everything like that.
no,
So,
and you have to get them there and everything. But if you're like if you're a pretty prominent comedian and you can afford to not make a profit but have everybody go crazy, that's the way to go.
speaking of that, I know we're winding down and everything, but Dr. Sharif, and it comes down to what you were talking about, even with AI, and you mentioned your small village. One of the things I remember a lot was happening in the Asian market was a lot of American companies were becoming popular in those countries. I know even
Wait.
China,
Sorry. One
became-
thing I just realized. I just stole that bit from John Oliver. I just remembered he did that. He gave Cheddar Bay biscuits to his whole audience. So I'm sorry, John Oliver. I forgot. I thought it was my own idea. And no, you came up with it first.
You got to give credit to where credit's due and everything. But Dr. Sharif, I remember there was a time that in China, and I think they still have a lot of McDonald's and other restaurants that are popular, but are a lot of American businesses, particularly the fast food and restaurants that we're talking about, making their way into Bangladesh. Do y'all have like a KFC and a McDonald's and stuff like that?
Yeah, this kind of restaurant is very popular. But last episode, I think my friend Rick said his experience about this COVID, right? He has, or his wife has COVID. This is the things I'm doing research, and this coming next year, this year, December, I have a conference on longevity research. We do a lot of research and publish paper. Trust me, the Ayurveda of this South Asia, this is very popular things. You can try it, and it will help you a lot. Second things, according to research, we find in the COVID situations, many people said that that many people will die in Bangladesh, but it never happened because of this spicy. Some point Nick said that there are different kind of spicy actually help you to improve your metabolism. So I want to even introduce a good restaurant from India, from Bangladesh to this North America. Beside this, we want to welcome this fast food restaurant. We have it, American burgers, KFC, McDonald's, Coke. It's very popular in Bangladesh. On the other hand, I think US people, they should try two things for their medications. This Ayurveda, it will really work. And different kind of spicy. It will help you a lot to improve your metabolism, even in the COVID situations. You can try this South Asian spicy like gingers, like all of the things. It will be helpful for you.
I know a lot of my
This is a cross-cultural things. Do not like push everything. There are many good things you can try and many positive things.
I believe in that because me and a friend of mine, we go out once a month to a restaurant. Matter of fact, I need to come and figure out where we're going in January. But the last one we went to was an Asian fusion. Well, actually, that wasn't the last one. I think that was 2 months ago. But it was an Asian fusion restaurant called Wheat here in Durham and everything like that. But we've tried different types of restaurants. Some of them have been, the last one we actually went to was a diner. That's what it was. It was a traditional diner and everything like that. But it's been around for a while. But yeah, we just try to stay on different restaurants and experiment with them. Part of that is so I can get some Yelp reviews and everything like that. And part of it is just because I'm naturally curious and all along those lines. So who knows what the next one will be and everything along those lines. I got an idea for a show for you, and then we'll get out of here, Rick, and everything like that. But I was interviewing one of the guys that played Santa for Black Santa, because we did have Black Santa during the Christmas season and everything like that. And I've done the interview now on Pod TV, I think 3 or 4 times. So we did it yesterday on New Year's Eve. And one of the things that he said could be a plot for a movie. And I was thinking about Buddy, the old movie and everything. But he's joked on the last 2 or 3 times that the elves are and the reindeers are on strike because they want better pay. And apparently in his interview, and the story was not a serious interview. It was more like a fun.
I would bet that has shown up in a movie. I saw a whole movie. I mean, I forget the name, but it was set at the North Pole, and it went into the whole economics of being an elf. it turns out that elves, they never sleep because they're always building toys,
Right.
and they live on a diet of cookies because the high carbs is the only thing that gives them the energy to stay awake all the time. So, yeah, the elves work under terrible conditions.
And that's part of what he was talking about, was they were complaining about their conditions. The reindeer were complaining about their conditions. He was also saying that on this last trip, he actually, because she was feeling left at home and everything, he actually had Mrs. Claus join him with a separate sleigh with separate reindeers and everything. I don't know if they had.
So here's a reality show. You could have Santa House. You take 8 Santas from across the country and you move them into a house and you have them compete at Santa-related tasks. For instance, you sit them in a seat at a mall, and then you send them the worst possible kids in the world, and you have them compete to see who's best at getting like a terrible kid to calm down. Or you have them build like wooden toys in a workshop, and at the end, on December 24th, you name, America's, next top Santa.
America's next top Santa. Trump might even go for that one, but then he'd want it to be Trump Santa, because he wants everything to be Trump this and Trump that.
Yeah.
So it'll be Trump Santas, and he might even try to be Santa himself.
Yep. All right. Well, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. We'll see you tomorrow, which will be Friday the 2nd, and everything like that. I think, like I said, I'm going to do.
I don't even know this time of year. I don't even know what day of the week it is. It gets all screwed up.
It's tomorrow is Friday the 2nd. The day that you were thinking about doing the next Naked at Night could be the 4th, or you might do it on.
Yeah, well, I'll send an email out. All right, thank you, and
no
see
problem.
you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow. Bye.